As Catherine has said, my topic is greed, and I'm going to approach it a little bit indirectly. I'd like to share a story with you, and here it goes. About a month ago, I woke up one morning, and I had gone down to the computer and had my glasses on, and I thought, boy, my glasses need cleaning. So I cleaned them, and I still couldn't see. And it turned out I had a big blob in my left eye. It turned out to be an aneurysm. And as one would do in this situation, I immediately started to pray. And I had a most unusual experience I've never had before. It was both terrifying and wonderful. And the experience was, I could not think of a single reason why Jesus should help me. I couldn't think of a single reason why Jesus should help me. It's not because I deserve it. It's not because I'm good or I'm not good. It's not because I said kind words or I failed to. It's certainly not because I deserve it. And at the same time, this realization came to me, it's all divine graciousness. It's all divine grace. It's all divine mercy. And it's all divine generosity. And that, my friends, is the opposite of greed. And I think that this kind of understanding is so important in all of our lives, that Jesus is there for us no matter what. And that we're called to act as best we can to imitate him. And so we have a definition from the Catechism, if you'd like, on greed, and usually it has to do, with the 10th commandment, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. It says here, the 10th commandment forbids greed and the desire to amass earthly goods without limit. It forbids avarice, arising from a passion for riches and their attendant power. And it forbids desire to commit injustice by harming our neighbor in with temporal goods. Now, I heard someone say once that our whole capitalistic system is based on greed. You see something on TV and you want it. You want more and more and more. And I think we're all have a little bit of that. But we just have to control it. And I think we have to look at our own lives, and we have to look at where greed can lead that will harm other people. And it certainly can harm other people. There was a sister that I know, Sister Simone Campbell, was going around the country talking to people about health care and various issues. And she's an attorney, and she talks to big important people, CEOs of corporations and so forth. And she was talking to a gentleman who was the CEO of something medical. And she asked what his salary was. And his salary was $10 million. But he was going for 11. And she said, well, you can't quite make it on 10 million? You're having trouble making ends meet? And his words were this: it's not about the money. It's about winning. It's about winning. If I were a psychologist, I'd probably suggest it might be trying to prove that your body part is bigger than another male's body part. I don't know. That's what psychologists say. At any rate, to me, it's a kind of sickness. You have to do that to prove that you're somehow better, to win. And at the same time, the sister said she heard a story about a woman who was extremely poor, trying to raise a child, and she had bad asthma. And she didn't have enough money for her inhaler. And she thought she would wait a few days, the check was going to come, she'd get the inhaler. She died that night. She didn't have enough money for an inhaler. And I just looked up today the price of an inhaler. They're not cheap. It's like $50 to $100, but she didn't have that to save her life. And someone else needs 10 million, 11. So it's just something that we want to think about. You know, and we can look at our own lives too. We don't have to go, you know, very far to other people and to corporations and so forth, but we can certainly look at our own lives and what can we do. Like you've heard of people who are hoarding. You know, maybe all of us, I don't know about you, but I tend to bring things into my house and they don't go out as fast as I would like them. We do amass things. I don't know at what extent it becomes greed. But if you've ever studied hoarders, and psychologists have studied them, it's not about greed at all. It's a sickness. You know, if you've ever been to a hoarder's house, you can't get in. You kind of walk sideways to get past the piles of newspaper and books and papers and so forth. It's a sickness. And I wonder if there is a connection between sin and sickness, or some of which we think is sin, is people that have gone the wrong way. They've lost their way. They need Jesus to bring them back. And maybe they need help in other ways too, doctors or psychologists. But certainly it is what a time, it's in our times we just seem to see a lot of greed and a lot of massing of wealth. There is a parable. Do you remember the parable of the rich fool? Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." And Jesus said, "Man, who appointed me a judge? Be on guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." And he told them this parable. The ground of a certain man, rich man, yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, "What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "This is what I will do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, and be merry." But God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself?" Sample of greed gone terrible. There are just so many examples that we can give, but as Catherine said, I have a lot of experience, or some experience anyway, overseas, and you see things that you wish you did not see. In Ghana, where I worked, for example, there was a beautiful forest of very rare trees, and I'm sorry, I don't remember what kind they were, very expensive trees, and somebody had a bribe and took all the trees. When I say took the trees, I mean huge forests, miles and miles, acres and acres, what could have been enriched the poor people in the area. But somebody greedy took it. Probably paid a good bribe. Nigeria. There was a corporation, oil corporation, either Exxon or Shell, I don't know which, so don't blame either. And they went into a poor little town. As you probably know, Nigeria has a lot of oil. And they went into this little town by a lake. And they had to go into the lake to get the oil. But they said, "Don't worry, we're going to pay everybody in town a little bit, and there will be no leaks. No leaks. And if something does happen, we're going to take care of it right away." Well, the oil leaked. And I don't think you can see this from here, but I'll bring this poster into the other room. Became one massive lake of muck. So the people can no longer drink the water. They can't use the water to wash, to clean. All the fish and the wildlife that were associated with the water have died. And years go by, and Shell and Exxon are nowhere to be seen. This is greed. These people are little people. They can't fight. I've heard that now they're getting an attorney, but they can't fight this. You know, how do you deal with this? This is just pure greed. Our wonderful Pope Francis has said a lot about greed, and he's not too happy with the greed that he has seen all around him. Somewhere I have quotes. Okay, Pope Francis admonished greedy Christians who profess faith but don't live it out in their dealings with others in a sermon. He suggested, these are strong words, it is better to be an atheist than to be hypocritical in living out your Catholic beliefs. It's a scandal to say one thing and do another. I don't know about you, but I know some people who are agnostics and are some atheists that put us to shame because they are so kind and so good. And you wonder, where are they getting this? And I think divine grace flows into them without their realizing it. Another quote from Pope Francis. An insatiable greed marks all human history, even today, when paradoxically a few dine luxuriantly, while all too many go without the daily bread needed to survive. And Francis has spoken out against the sickness of greed and the lust for power. He has done a lot to speak on that. I have, because I've given a lot of talks to churches and schools and kids on poverty and so forth, I have a sample of some religious sayings from Scripture, you know, on justice and on poverty. And if anybody would like a copy, I can bring some next week. There's just so many. Throughout the Bible, there is just a weaving in of care for the orphan, the stranger, the widow, the poor. You know, and to take care of these is to be generous. It's to somehow get beyond our greed. And you know, the greed does not have to simply be for money or for goods. It can be a greed for power. It can be a greed in all different ways. There is a priest that runs Dorothy Day House for the homeless. He said this, that spirituality is a matter of subtraction. Try to simplify. What is keeping me from being a free person? Father talked about this a little bit during the homily. A free person, a loving person, with deeper connections to others. And he confessed, he said, I have a little bit of greed. I want to be admired. And this Lent, he's working to give up that desire, trying to simplify his life so that he'll be open to the generosity of Jesus, and he'll be able to show that generosity to all he meets. I have a friend, who I shall not name, but you don't know her anyway. The joke about her is that she never wears anything 3 weeks old, more than 3 weeks old. And I don't think it's greed. She's constantly giving away her clothes, but it's a constant buying of more and more and more. And I just wonder if some of us don't have a little bit of that in us. I think people sometimes go shopping just for comfort or for something to do and you see a bargain. But again, it's a matter of trying to get beyond this and be generous to other people in whatever way we can. I do a series of communion services at nursing homes, and I tell the people, because you know they can't do a whole lot. They're sitting around all day, they're playing bingo. I tell them, you can do a lot. You can pray for people who have nothing. You can be kind to somebody you don't like in the home. You can give your smile to people that need a smile. You can call a friend that you know that lives alone and is lonely. There is a lot of ways of being generous and fighting greed. My friend Father Art McGovern, who died a number of years ago, during his Jesuit training, they were asked to go out and be homeless, live with the homeless for a week on the streets. And he was a brilliant philosopher, and he was so ashamed, he said he could barely beg. He had to do that. And he said, he was living under the bridge for that week with some other people, and the homeless shared their food with him. The generosity of God can come in all different ways. They were trying to help him, and he was extremely moved. Our song today, our communion song, one of our songs, here's a verse from it, Christ be our light. Longing for food, many are hungry. Longing for water, many are still thirst. Make us your bread, broken for others, shared until all are fed. I think that's the antidote for greed, that we share our lives. And of course, I know the people here, many of them are so generous. There's a story of a nun cleaning a leper in the Congo, and a friend came in, an observer, and she was cleaning the wounds of the leper. And the friend said, I couldn't do that for $1 million. And she said, neither could I. We're asked to respond to the divine generosity and to the divine mercy that we're all given. I actually could go on and on, never give me a microphone, but I think my 15 minutes are up. So thank you and God bless you.
The talk was on grief that day, and she just kept weeping through the talk and whatever. So I knew something was going on, but I had no clue. I never met her before. At the end of Mass, Holy Mass, when I went to pray with her, she said, it is a problem. It's this compulsion almost. I just found a coat that I really liked. It was a stylish, really cute coat. Came in 3 colors. And she said, I bought all 3 of them. And she goes, I know I don't need them. I know I probably won't wear one of them. But it was just this compulsion to have them. So, there's so much to think about on this topic. And so many areas that we can improve. And I think just simplifying things into 2 categories. What do I really need? And what are my wants? God will always help us with our needs. And are our wants, are they justified? And then even more than that, am I helping the poor? Am I helping people? Am I going out of my way to give to the poor? We had a drive one time of collecting clothes and then distributing them to families. And I will never forget, one response came back, and I met the woman. They were going through really, really tough times. They lost their home. She had, I think, like 6 children, and it was wintertime, and she said, I got my bag, and I was so thankful, and I was going through it, and she, in that bag, had several things. One of the things that she received was a shirt that had a hole in it, pants that were torn, and 1 boot. As long as I live, I will never in my life forget that, because what she said to me marked me forever. She said, I never felt so poor as when I opened that bag and received 1 boot, a shirt with a hole and a stain, and pants that were torn. When we give to the poor, they're people like us. They're our family. They're our family. And the same way we wouldn't ever wear or want to wear a t-shirt or a shirt with a hole in it, or pants that have holes, or wear 1 boot. Who would ever do that here in America? No us. So that's a sin. When we do things like that, that's sinful. Save your shirt that has a hole in it, tear it up, and it makes great rags for cleaning. Same thing, pants, get rid of them. Many times, I have found that even things that were donated still had price tags on them. Many things still had price tags on them. We don't want to do that. We have to answer to God for all of these things. We don't even think, You hear people sometimes say, I don't even know what to confess in confession. That's a real check in my spirit. Because we all can grow in holiness and in these things. So today the focus is on greed. So we must make sure that we pray for the poor, for the underprivileged, And a lot of times, the poor, they're not necessarily that they've lost their home or that they're, you know, many people that we have helped here at the Divine Mercy Center are two people working in you know, family and not making enough to make ends meet. Like the house is covered and the bills are covered, difficulty buying the necessary food. They get some basic things, but you know, like a jug of peanut butter here or soup or whatever. It goes a long way and it means a lot. Be generous. I'll tell you why. You cannot outdo God. I remember one time too, and I'll close with this one. There was a man and a woman, members of this ministry, that both lost their jobs. And they were within months of each other, but both of them lost their job and they had one child. And a period of time went on and they were both quite nervous about not having jobs and things were getting very tight and uncomfortable. And so this particular couple came in and made a $700, it was the last money that they had. And I know that it was the last money that they had. They made a $700 something change donation to the ministry. And when they handed this over to me, I said, there's no way that I can accept this. I know that you don't have money, that you're really struggling, and who knows what tomorrow. And they said, no. We truly believe that by tithing this money, God will bless us abundantly. Within a week, they both got a job. They both got a job. It wasn't for them, that lesson. It was for me. I learned a lot in that. So we can't outdo God in generosity. Be generous and clean in our giving with generous hearts. God will bless us abundantly for those things. And apologize to the Lord for the times that we have given a torn or something that we wouldn't even wear. Okay? May God bless us and our families in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.